You can call me Mystic Mac because I predict these things.
Cameron Saaiman takes on Malcolm Wellmaker this Saturday at UFC Fight Night Kansas City. And this is a really fun, competitive fight at 135 pounds. Wellmaker making his UFC debut, coming off of a first-round knockout on Dana White's Contender Series over Adam Bromhold back in August. Adam Bromhold, pretty highly touted prospect, 13-2. Had a lot of hype heading into that fight. Got finished by right hook in the first round by Wellmaker, who's 8-0 in his career, 30 years old. Like I said, making his UFC debut against Cameron Saaiman, who's had 5 fights in the UFC. Also had a knockout win on Dana White's Contender Series in August of 2022. Had 3 wins in a row against, lower level competition, and recently coming off of a 2-fight losing streak to Christian Rodriguez and Peyton Talbot. So Cameron Saaiman hasn't fought in over a year since his last fight to Peyton Talbot, but I think it's just because he learned a lot in that fight about just holes in his game, and was just kind of fraud checked, honestly. But he's still young. He's only 24, so I like that he's taken time off to kind of reevaluate things, clean up some holes in his game, and maybe come back stronger. But he's a southpaw striker, mostly will shoot takedowns, has a little bit of grappling, pretty well-rounded. A lot of these young guys coming up are pretty well-rounded. It's usually the older guys that usually transition to MMA late or from other combat sports that are specialists or are really special in one area. But Cameron Saaiman, he's really good leg kicks and body kicks, decent power, all-around really, really well-rounded striker. Can be taken down, though. We saw that in his fight against Terrence Mitchell and Steven Kozlow, as well as Christian Rodriguez. They had a lot of fun scrambles back and forth. But really good cardio that he's shown against Kozlow, and just in general in all of his fights. He can push a really high pace, put a lot of volume out there. Lands a lot of fouls, and that's got to be said. He's very young into his career, but already known for a guy that lands fouls on his opponents. So Malcolm Wellmaker, going to be the much taller fighter in this one with the range. He's 5'10" with a 71.5-inch reach versus Cameron Saaiman, who's 5'8" with a 67-inch reach. So he's going to have a 4.5-inch reach advantage, age advantage, if you even want to. Well, I guess you can call that, because Malcolm Wellmaker isn't growing anymore. He's fully developed. He's not going to put on really any more size or grow into his frame, and you can't really say the same for Cameron Saaiman. So I guess you can bring that up as a helpful statistic. But this fight is very close. Cameron Saaiman has a lot of experience. He already has 5 fights in the UFC, but I just don't know how he's going to bounce back from the last fight against Peyton Talbot. So I'm going to go with Malcolm Wellmaker here. I think he can land the better strikes on the feet to get the finish or win a decision. I just look at Malcolm Wellmaker and I'm like, this dude is taller, rangier, has more power. He's going to be bigger in terms of just physicality, and he has the same frame as Peyton Talbot, but I think he's more muscled up too. So I think he's going to have kind of the same success that Peyton Talbot had against Cameron Saaiman. Cameron Saaiman kind of lunges in with his strikes and can get caught that way. That's how he was getting caught with Peyton Talbot. And Malcolm Wellmaker has really good check hooks. He has a really good check left hook that he was throwing against Bromhold in his Contender Series fight, and then he caught him coming in with a right check hook and put him out, face first in that fight. And I feel like he's gonna be using that a lot in this fight, because Cameron Saaiman is going to be pushing forward, lunging with his combinations to get within range of Wellmaker, and that plays right into his style. Very good on the back foot, can go forward though, gonna have the reach advantage, has tons of knockouts to his name, so a lot of power. Does have some chokes as well, so he's going to be no slouch on the ground. I just think he gets this one done. I just don't know where Cameron Saaiman, where his head's going to be at, coming off of such a devastating loss to Peyton Talbot. The Christian Rodriguez fight, he won a round. He won the first round, you could say. The other two were very close. And Christian Rodriguez, in true Christian Rodriguez form, missed weight. So he was fighting the bigger guy who didn't really have to push himself to get those last few pounds off. But, it was still a very competitive fight. And that was his first loss. I can excuse that. Christian Rodriguez is really good. He's beat, a lot of good fighters, had a lot of really good performances. Even against Melquizael Costa, he had a really good performance in his last out. So, but the one against Peyton Talbot, that's one of those losses where he didn't get a lot of success going. He was dropped multiple times. It just kind of looked like Talbot was out there playing with him, and finally decided to, like, okay, I'm tired of being here. I'm going to put him out now, and put him out at the beginning of the second round. And I just wonder, for such a young fighter who's had so much success and still has tons of potential, kind of where that's going to put him in a state of mind, so to speak, psychologically. Also gonna have to travel here from South Africa. Wellmaker lives just down the street, pretty much, in relative terms. Doesn't really have to travel, but it is his UFC debut. But again, tons of momentum on his side. He doesn't know what it's like to lose, and I just don't know if Cameron Saaiman is going to be able to hurt him and get him out of there. I think if he does win, he's going to just win a decision by outlanding and mixing up his takedowns. But you also got to take into consideration some of these wins that Cameron Saaiman is getting. Like, he had a lot of fouls in them. Like Stephen Kozlow, kneed the dude in the head and then eventually gets a third round TKO. Like, imagine that. You just illegally kneed the dude in the head with 2 knees on the ground. Manny Martinez, you poke him in the eye, you kick him in the nuts, and still barely squeaked by that one. It was still very competitive. Terrence Mitchell shouldn't be in the octagon. Got him out of there super early, round 1. Terrence Mitchell, again, no business being in there. Christian Rodriguez, I get it, but you can argue Christian Rodriguez, could have won that fight, and then just has a really bad showing against Peyton Talbot. We haven't seen these types of performances from Malcolm Wellmaker. All we've seen is a very confident, athletic, very good striker, piecing people up and winning every fight. And so I got to go with the guy with the undefeated record, who's got tons of momentum right now, and the sky's the limit for him. So I'm going to go with Wellmaker. I think he can get the TKO, if not get the decision. Thanks.